The sound of country roads from half a world away in Taiwan. State leaders and lawmakers there to cut the ribbon on West Virginia's Taiwan office. Secretary Mitch Carmichael speaking to me from Taiwan.
The university will continue looking at eliminating foreign language requirements for its majors. Recommendations for discontinuing the bachelor's degree in recreation, parks, and tourism and the bachelor's degree in biometric systems engineering remained unchanged. We turn our attention to Morgantown now, where West Virginia University has received a large sum of money toward research. Nearly $800,000 of funding has been announced to go toward 2 research projects at West Virginia University. The grant money is coming from the National Science.
Leaders in Russia became concerned that NATO had reached its borders, and after NATO made plans to add Georgia and Ukraine, it decided to act. Russia invaded Georgia in 2008, then Ukraine in 2014, preventing either country from joining NATO. In the South China Sea, China turned remote reefs into man-made islands with military bases on them, all in an area disputed by many countries. It's also issued huge loans and built infrastructure projects in dozens of countries around the world.
Stop the killings. This is the appeal of several groups to President Bongbong Marcos during the 75th International Human Rights Day. Various groups gathered at the
Liwasang Foreign Ministry spokeswoman has warned that if Philippines acts on its plan, then Beijing will consider it as a significant move that infringes on China's sovereignty.
The Philippine and U.S. militaries began a drill, their second one in less than 2 months. It's a 2-day exercise in the South China Sea. Both sides are also conducting joint patrols. 2 weeks ago, the Philippines held a drill with India as well, a maritime partnership exercise.
China has increasingly pressed its claims over the entirety of the South China Sea, rejecting the Philippines' competing claims to sovereignty in the area. Beijing not only patrols the disputed waters frequently, clashing with Philippine fishermen, it also makes regular military...
Chinese fishermen have been using cyanide to destroy resources and drive away Filipino fisherfolk in Bajo de Masinloc. The NSC expressed alarm over the report, but stressed it needs to validate the claims further.
The National Police denies receiving any information on the impending arrest of former President Rodrigo Duterte by the International Criminal Court. The PNP said even if the ICC issued such an order...
We begin in New York, where it's been 38 years since the EDSA People Power Uprising that toppled the dictatorship of former Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Sr. But for these Filipinos marching on the streets of New York, the fight for freedom and democracy in their homeland
continues. They say the spirit of the People Power Revolution in 1986 lives in them. 38 years on, they're fighting an attempt to change the Constitution by the son of the president that earlier generation toppled.
We remember the
on Tuesday confirmed they have been monitoring interference on the electronic capabilities or communications of their ships in the West Philippine Sea. Navy spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore Roy Vincent Trinidad said,
The situation is escalating now that dozens of Navy vessels and Chinese fishing boats are swarming in Philippine waters. The president vowing to protect the safety and livelihood of Filipino fishermen, as well as defend the country's maritime territory.
There is a narrative out there that is going around that we are at the beck and call practically of the United States when it comes to these foreign policy decisions, especially surrounding...
Manila will continue to assert its presence in the West Philippine Sea to protect the country's sovereignty. Despite the 2016 arbitral victory of the Philippines, China continues to claim the Scarborough Shoal. We begin with China defending the reinstallation of floating barriers in the West Philippine Sea. Footage released by the Philippine Coast Guard showed the barriers blocking the entrance of the Scarborough Shoal. The PCG said to expose Beijing's maritime aggression. Manila has been pushing for transparency initiatives since last year, which aims to expose China's illegal actions and harassment in the West Philippine Sea. The PCG believes
the Philippine government to file charges against Chinese entities that are destroying Manila's marine resources. We're joined by Fernando Hicap, National Chairperson of Pamalakaya. Mr. Hicap, good afternoon.
anyone on the island of Taiwan who wants to pursue Taiwan independence or split China's territory will be severely punished by history and law.
Taiwan elected Lai Ching-te as
Hong Kong offers bounties on overseas activists. These are all recent headlines. All of them tell the same story. Hong Kong is not what it used to be. Punishment for anything anti-China. Activists could be extradited to Beijing, election candidates could be banned, and critical media could be raided. Basically, one country, two systems was over.
U.S. President Joe Biden said the United States does not support the independence of Taiwan. The Biden administration has feared that the election and subsequent transition to a new administration would escalate conflict with Beijing.
And precision bombers. These are just a few things the Philippines brings to the table if China invades Taiwan. The Filipino and United States governments have come to an agreement that will allow the U.S. to expand its military presence to the northern islands of the Philippines.
Beijing insists it will never accept any provocations on the Taiwan issue, as it again accuses the Philippines of seriously violating the One China policy. Beijing's remarks come after Philippine defense.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. For the past 3 days, North Korea has fired artillery shells into waters off its west coast, raising tensions on the Korean peninsula. In response, the South Korean military
statement also emphasized that any attack on South Korea will be, and I'm quoting again, met with a swift, overwhelming and decisive response. Earlier this year, in April, U.S. President Joe Biden had issued...
Manila has disregarded these objections. It is mobilizing allies, asserting its claims, and confronting China head-on.
The staggering pace at which China is building settlements along a river valley in Beul, Ken Pachong. This region has a deep cultural significance for the Bhutanese people.
West Philippine Sea.
Top of mind for many I spoke with is the ongoing conflict in the South China Sea, parts of which Filipinos call the West Philippine Sea. For years, Chinese ships have been entering Philippine waters, which fisher folk here say...
Saturday, and soldiers have already retaken a mosque that was of crucial importance to the militants.
During the Marawi siege, ito ang naging command center ng Maute terrorist group. In fact, we believe na...
ZCG used a water cannon on a Philippine resupply boat and damaged its windshield. Beijing also blocked other Philippine Coast Guard vessels on the mission, leading to a collision that damaged another Philippine ship.
The United States helped out as part of their Spanish-American War and assisted Filipinos in achieving freedom from Spanish rule. The problem was they didn't leave. And so began the highly controversial American occupation.